There we go.
Let's call this meeting to order. Any citizen or public comments tonight? Other than that it's snowy, huh?
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. Have consideration of approval of the agenda.
So move. Second.
Steve, does the one item need to be removed?
No, we'll get to that. We'll still open a public hearing, but we'll just probably continue it.
All right.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Next, have consideration of approval of the minutes of the February 14th, 20th, and 26th meetings.
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Next, we have consideration of approval of the consent calendar.
So move.
Second.
Any questions on or discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Next is business of the mayor. I don't think I have any mayoral business tonight, so we'll just continue right along. Number 9 is the petitions and public hearings. First is a public hearing on the fiscal year 19 budget. We open the hearing. We have a filing of affidavit of publication.
Yes, Your Honor.
How about any written comments or objections?
None, Your Honor.
Do we have any oral comments or objections?
Move for close.
Second.
Had a motion and a second to close the hearing. Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
So then we'll have consideration of Resolution 3018, which is approving the fiscal year 19 budget and the submittal to the state. Any discussion? Trudy, do you have anything to comment on that one? Or as soon as you get done writing?
I get caught up here.
3 minutes or less?
Yeah, 3 minutes or less. I promise it'll be 3 minutes or less. I think we've got a really good budget crafted. It's a little bit bigger this year just for the fact that we have the UV, or the wastewater plant, water reclamation facility, right?
Close enough.
Wastewater, okay,
You
I'm
mean
getting
the
there.
wastewater- You mean the wastewater plant?
Yes. I got to get better at calling it what it is. So our budget this year is close to $27 million, and it's because of that project that we have going on. Total revenues are $26,995,209. The total expenditures and transfers out are $28,707,802. That's going to bring us down with an ending fund balance of $14,251,872 at the end of the fiscal year of 19. That's our projected ending balance. The levy came in at 15.83178 per thousand, and that's up about 2 cents from the current year that we're in. So we were able to stay pretty close to the current levy. Just trying to think, is there anything else of any big other than the sewer project, Steve? I mean,
Yeah, you know, we've got our wayfinding. A lot of our goals that we have set, you know, we've got funded in various ways, shapes, or forms. You know, the wayfinding, we've got the final part of that. We're doing that. We're doing the initial part in fiscal year 18 here yet. In 19, we're going to be wrapping up the signs. You know, we've got bridge demo with the Charter Western Trail. We've got a lot of street work happening, a lot of street projects going on fiscal year 19. So, yeah, it's a good budget. We've got a lot going on, as we usually do. You know, state backfill is something we'll have to keep an eye on as that potentially fades into the sunset. But so we might be looking at a revenue shortfall there, which would definitely have an impact for us. But yeah, overall, I think we've got a pretty good budget here. I don't know if anybody had a chance to see there, but on the budget, all the attachments there, I kind of put a couple pie graphs in there for you to look at to kind of see how those revenues and expenditures kind of come together. I thought that might be something you find interesting, so plug those in to kind of give an idea of where that stuff kind of comes and goes from. So with that,
Pretty.
yeah, I think we're good to go.
How much of the wastewater plant is in the numbers that we've got in front of us, Steve? Is the whole thing in there or just part of it?
Very little.
I was going to
actually.
say, I didn't think there was...
Yeah, I mean, we've started we have the fund started, and we're starting off by transferring $1 million in from wastewater treatment into that project account. But next year is when we'll really see the bulk of that
Right.
expenditure.
So capital projects, about a little under $4 million. That's where that would show up in whatever's in there for that plant.
No, yeah, actually would probably.
And then other projects that we've got going on as well.
It would probably go in under the business type enterprise
Business type
funds.
enterprise funds, okay.
Yeah, it would be a capital project within the business type.
Okay.
The capital projects are typically just like our street projects and things of that nature. So it'd all be within that business type stuff, enterprise funds. And if we're lucky, it'll come in well under $16 million.
Any other questions?
Need a motion on that, a move?
We need a motion. Thank you.
Second.
I think we had a motion
I
and a
think
second.
we did, yep, I
Thought I
did.
We had a second, but I
Thought I
think
heard a mumble over there.
he said something about like, do we
Hey.
need a motion? You said second, we need a motion.
We agree we need a motion. Now do we have one?
Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr. Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Motion passes. So what's the next step on that process then, Trudy? Would you
We
submit that
will
now, or?
Submit that over to the county. Actually, it goes to Gloria and then also down to the state. It goes electronically down to the state. We will need to put in some resolutions from the 19th of March in that paperwork, but Gloria doesn't submit it to the state until the 31st of March. So I'll just call over there and give her that resolution number. That's a new requirement by the state. You have to put in all the resolution numbers that authorize the debt. That's something they added, oh gosh, a couple years ago. But I'll get it over there by the 15th, 'cause it has to be there by the 15th, and then she'll just add it before she finalizes it. So,
Very good.
but yeah, it'll be going off hopefully tomorrow.
Next is a public hearing on the 2018 owner-occupied rehab grant. And we will open the hearing. We have filing of affidavit of publication.
Yes, Your Honor.
So is this where we have the continuance here, or where we have oral comments?
Yeah, I think, we can mention that that Steve Went from NICOG isn't going to be here tonight, so we've opened a public hearing, and I think what we're planning on doing is just continuing the public hearing. It's open, and not close it, and then we'll look to reconvene on the March 19th. So if you're here for the CDBG grant public hearing, it'll be on March 19th. So.
So do we need to take any action to make that continuance, or?
A motion to that effect wouldn't hurt.
I'd move to continue this hearing until the 19th.
Second.
Due to the fact that Steve Went from NICOG is not here, we'd like to continue this hearing to the March 19th meeting. Been moved and seconded to do so. Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Okay, so we will continue along those same lines on the 19th, and hopefully it won't be such a night that Steve can get here a little easier.
Your lips to God's ears.
There's one little thing, Trudy.
Yes.
I was just going to point out on this page. It says the main objective of the City of Fenton housing.
Oh, I missed that one.
So
I will make that change. Thank you, Delane. That was in the application, then?
Yeah, it just says City of Charles City Annual HUD Gross Income Limits,
Okay.
Owner-Occupied Housing Rehabilitation Program is at the top. It's got a little chart of family sizes in 2017, 2018.
Okay, I'll find it, and I'll let him know so he can make change in his copies as well.
Next item is a public hearing on the 2018 Riverside Drive, Illinois Street Reconstruction Project. So we'll open the hearing on that project, and we have a filing of affidavit of publication.
Yes, Your Honor.
How about any written comments or objections?
None, Your Honor.
Any oral comments tonight?
Move to close.
Second.
Move to close the hearing, and clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malera.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Hearing is closed. We'll next consider Resolution 3318, which is approving the final plans for this project.
Yes, the City Council approved the preliminary plans and specifications for the project, as well as authorizing taking the bids at the February 5th City Council meeting. Now, this street reconstruction project includes the reconstruction of Riverside Drive and Illinois Street from Joslyn to Kelly. This is the street project we're going to raise that corner of Riverside Drive in Illinois to get it out of the floodplain or above the flood elevation. And this is where we're acquiring a little bit of a corner from the Nettleton's property to move it away from the floodway so we can do the filling. The project has a contract completion date on or before September 1st, so it'll be this summer's construction project. Now, there's one addendum issued during the bidding process. This addendum clarified the reference information pertaining to the insurance certificates requirements, as well as providing additional details on the reconstruction of the Nettleton's stone wall. Now, the addendum, that was minor and it didn't change the scope of the project, so the final construction documents essentially match the previously approved preliminary plans and specifications. So I would recommend Resolution 3318 approving the final plans and specifications for this project.
Any questions for John? Not. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to accept the final plans. Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malera.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is this Resolution 3418, which is awarding the contract for this project.
Yes, on February 28th, we had the bid opening, and we received 6 bids. The low bid was submitted from King Construction out of Clear Lake. They had a bid of $320,829.88. Second bid was from Wicks Construction. They were a little over $335,000. Kroll Incorporated from New Hampton submitted a bid for $352,600. Larry Elwood Construction out of Mason City, they had a bid of a little over $359,000. Baker Enterprises out of Waverly submitted a bid for a little over $393,000. And McKinnis Excavating out of Mason City, they submitted a high bid of $416,600. Now, the engineer's opinion of probable cost for the project was $360,000. Now, King Construction, they are from the area, and before the construction contract is approved, they'll have to submit and provide a performance and maintenance bond in 100% of the project amount. So I would recommend approval of Resolution 34-18, awarding the bid to King Construction.
Has King Construction ever done any work for the city before, John?
No, they've bid on the work before,
Okay.
but they have not been low bidders, so they have not been awarded any work for us. I did reach out to some other adjoining communities, and they did last year. King did a street project for Mason City. And from all three communities, I didn't hear any negative comments about them.
Have they been around for a while? Do you know?
Well, King Construction, they actually started in 1947 in Iowa Falls.
That's a while.
Yeah, and well, lately there's the ownership. I mean, the founder retired in the 70s, and then there were a couple of ownership changes. And since then, they've added Clear Lake to take care of this area, and then they added a Coralville office to take care of the southeast Iowa area.
I figured with your experience, you would have heard of them before, so. Okay. That's so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
And Steve, will this project then use some local option sales tax dollars then for this project?
Yes. Yep. Yep. Actually, the majority of this project will be local option sales tax. Some from storm sewer, I think, as well.
Which is nice, I think, when people realize that, to know that those dollars are being spent, that citizens approve that sales tax, and it's nice to see it being put to use, so. Next is consideration of Resolution 3518, which is approving a lease for a garden center with Tyson's.
The manager sent me an email this afternoon. He has quite a drive to go home, and so he wondered if it would be okay if he wasn't here tonight due to the weather. And I said, well, there's no changes being made, so I think the council will understand. So he sent his apologies, but he thanks you guys for being understanding so that he can get home safe. So there are not any changes to this as there have been in the past, so it's pretty much the same as it has
Is
been.
it the same
so-
thing they requested last year?
Correct.
This is a
So-
3-month lease.
I think they,
It's like-
it goes up to 4, I think, in May, June. No, 3 months, 3 months. Starts
April to
April. I was
July.
thinking March. I had it in my head it was starting in March, so.
Okay.
But yeah, and they will just pay per month as you are there, so.
Any further questions?
Have there been any concerns with last year's greenhouse use at all? Steve?
I haven't heard any complaints or concerns with Tyson's for sure.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is the consideration of Resolution 3618, which is approving the 2080 agreement for broadband.
Yep, so this is, we reviewed this at our workshop here the other night. The Broadband Commission has gone through this 28E and made a number of changes within it. You know, this has been kind of an evolving document as we've gone here. So I think we've really gotten it to a good place to reflect the services and the things that are being performed through the 28E. So we've got those updates in there, as well as when it comes to the compensation portion. We didn't do any change in compensation last year for either the school, the chamber, or Community Revite. And so this year there was a request from the school to increase that portion to make up for last year not increasing it, and kind of catch it up this year. So we are looking at a 7% increase for this jump from fiscal year 17 to 19. And so that's where you see the 40,489, and then it's the 3.5% for the next year after that, 41,906. You'll also see in there that we included just clarification that the fiscal year 18 amount that we'll be paying here shortly is the 37,797. Since that one wasn't part of the last agreement, technically we included in this so that it was covered and clear what that amount would be. So that part is included. Like I said, no change to Revite or Chamber or those amounts. Revite, it's $10,000 a year. Chamber is $3,900. We're looking again at a 2-year contract, and this document has been vetted pretty thoroughly, so I think we are ready to approve.
Any other questions?
I would just echo what Steve just said. I know the Broadband Commission spent a lot of time working through this, so with that, I would move for approval.
Second.
Further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Next will be consideration of a motion to award the contract for audit services for the fiscal years 18, 19, and 20. Discussion.
We talked about this at our February 20th meeting, 20th meeting, and it ended up being a tie vote. We did have two bids, one from Gardner Thompson, who has been doing our audit for the last several years, and TP Anderson, which is a new firm out of Humboldt. We'd never ever gotten bids from them before. I did, or I guess Steve did, talk to some other cities, I think, that have used TP Anderson, and they had good things to say about them. And I know the gal I talked with there was really nice, too. And their bid was a little bit cheaper. I think over the 3 years, it totaled about $14,000 cheaper than Gardner Thompson did. Gardner Thompson's is a straight across 19.5 for the next 3 years each year. So none of their bids include the cost for a single audit, but it's too hard for them to make that determination just because they don't know what's going to be audited, because it's going to depend on the dollar amount of the federal grant for whatever program it is. So I guess it's to you guys to decide which one you want to go. We've always had a really, really good relationship with Gardner Thompson, I know, but we could with TP Anderson too, so it's hard to say. But
Yeah, those three communities I spoke with, one was Humboldt, that's where they're based out of, and they've worked with Humboldt for a number of years, and it sounds like they've had good success there. Also talked to Algona and Olwine. Olwine is the largest of those three communities. They're probably closest to us in population. They're still a little bit smaller. Similar situation where they had a auditing firm that worked for them for a number of years, and then TP Anderson just this last year came in and underbid them quite a bit. And initially, they had some concern about, that bid coming in at that level, but they went with that bid, and we're very, very happy with it. Said that they didn't cause them any more, cause them any more work than the others did necessarily. So I guess that was good to hear. This is a tough one because it's up to you as the council. What you think? It's a pretty good price difference. I mean, it averages out to be about $4,700 a year more if you look at it that way. You don't have to take the low bid, but if you're happy with the service of Gardner, which they do a fine job for us, I think you could certainly justify in going that direction. But it's hard to look at that price difference and the good reports we've heard back from the other ones, and say that TP wouldn't be potentially as good. If you go with TP and then you want to go back to Gardner that next year or after that, it might be a little bit tougher getting on their schedule and things like that. So there's a lot of things to consider. So it's not an easy choice, but yeah, basically what we found out was, I guess there was other communities have been happy with the service. They're a little bit smaller communities, not much, but I don't know that would have much to play into it. So I guess it's up to whatever your preference would be.
Why they don't have a housing program, do they? That was always
No.
my concern, but I mean.
No, I don't think any of those communities have a housing authority like we do.
Yeah. I mean, Heidi didn't seem too concerned with it, but.
Yeah.
Because they do their own audit also.
They do their own full-blown audit.
Yeah, so I don't know that would be a
Yeah.
a major concern. I mean, they'll tie in the housing stuff to ours, but they won't be auditing the housing stuff. per
Heidi
se.
didn't seem, overly concerned, but
I guess, to me, that's one of the reasons you go out and bid it, is to see if you can save some money. And secondly, we look at every other area of the city to try and save what we can. I mean, look at our budget. I mean, there are departments going without some of the things that they wanted to, so we can try and make our budget work. So I guess, to me, I'm still in favor of us looking at the TP Anderson going forward.
And we're not reviewing this because of anything negative. I mean, we're not reviewing it because there's been an issue and not looking to switch. Just as Delane says, the bid process goes out a certain way. My concern would be, has TP had done anything for communities larger than us? To see, if we're going to be the most difficult they've ever done or the biggest they've done, that would be somewhat of a concern. But I think we have a very, very well-run city office here that could work within their process. I was just looking. None of the communities in the list stood out to me as being larger, but
Right.
not familiar with many of them. 'Cause you spoke of the top 3 there.
I spoke with the top 3, and they're probably the largest population-wise of those. And they do a lot of municipal utility work, but yeah. So I guess from this list, we would appear to be the largest one, but we're not that much larger than the rest. So
And really kind of comes down to the difference being the single audit. And it sounds like we should have that under control. Shouldn't be much more difficult for them to do that as well.
either way, the single audit will cost us a little bit more no matter who we go with.
they're
so.
both going to charge for it.
Yeah, exactly. So, are they going to charge approximately more than $3,500? I don't know. But other than lack of experience with maybe communities bigger than us, to have us be all down, but to be the only concern. But as you said, it's one of those difficult positions, because if we do go with the TP and then with TP Anderson, excuse me, and have a negative experience, getting back in could be difficult. But we can't approach everything on the negative, saying, well, we expect to have a bad situation. This is a professional company. They do work for a number of communities and utilities as well. So, I mean, they're level playing field.
Good thing is the mayor kind of pointed out before, you really can't make a wrong decision here. Either one would be good, probably.
I respect the concern of a higher cost with Gardner, but I think the quote they gave us is slightly lower than what they've charged us last year. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
We have had, I think, a very quality audit with them. I've respected the work they do. They do have an office in Charles City, a little bit of hometown there, but they're an area person like most auditors are. And I don't think the cost difference is that significant in the total realm of the budget. And we do have budgeted enough to cover either one of these bids. So I would prefer staying with Gardner, but we can vote on it. We'll see what happens.
Any further discussion? We'd have a motion.
I'd move to go with TP Anderson.
Second.
A motion and a second to go with the quote from T.P. Anderson. Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
No.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
No.
Starr.
Aye.
So we will make the contacts with T.P. Anderson then,
I
and
will.
with Gardner, I suppose, too, and let them know what the decision was, and we'll proceed forward. I think, like Steve was saying, I think we probably this was one of those choices where you weren't choosing between two bad things, you're choosing between two good things, so that's
Oh, that's
the
right.
positive part of this. I
That's
think.
almost a worse situation.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to Resolution 3718, which is approving preliminary plans and specifications for the 2018 Hildreth Street Improvement Project and setting the date for a public hearing. John, is that you?
Yes, well, this resolution does approve the preliminary plans and specifications for the Hildreth Street project. It also sets March 28th at 2 p.m. as the bid date and time, as well as April 2nd for the date of the public hearing on the project. Now, this project is a complete reconstruction of Hildreth Street from 9th Street to Gilbert Street. The pavement will be removed, new water mains will be put in, new storm sewer system, and any part of the sanitary sewer system that has not been relined will be replaced as well. It will also include replacing the individual service lines for both sewer and water within the right-of-way. The project does have a contract completion date on or before October 26th of this year. Now, SEH engineers, they've prepared the plans and the special provisions for the project, and I've prepared the project manual for the bidding documents. And a complete copy of the bidding documents is on file with the city clerk. So I would recommend approval of Resolution 3718, approving the preliminary plans and specifications, as well as setting the letting and hearing dates and authorizing the clerk to publish the notice.
Any questions for John?
John, you know I'm not an engineer or construction specialist, but wouldn't it make more sense, as long as we're digging up the street, to just replace the sewer lines, even though if they've been lined, they're still old lines? Wouldn't it make more sense to just replace everything so we know everything is new under there at this time?
But it's fairly new lining, and actually that lining will last beyond the pavement. I mean, so it's really like having a new main
pipe
there
already.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like having a new main, so it'd be like taking out new pipe and putting back in new pipe.
Okay.
But the service lines will be
Be all changed
yeah.
out. Okay. I'm just trying to make sure
Yeah.
I can make sense of it in my head. So, thank you.
Any further questions?
I'd so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further questions for comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Motion passes. So the bids will be received on the 28th of March, and then the hearing will be at the April 2nd meeting. Very good. Next is consideration of the third and final reading of Ordinance 1113, amending subsections of 105.02 definitions and 105.10 waste containers for the City of Charles City Code of Ordinances. For the purpose, I guess I'll read the whole thing, for the purpose to modify the requirements of the disposal of residential and waste and recyclable materials. No sense stopping halfway through, I guess.
Get her done.
Because somebody else got to read it later anyway, so I just gave you a prelude there. Any discussion?
Well, this is the third and final reading of this ordinance, and basically these are just mainly updates to the ordinance that allows us to put in the new system that we're moving towards with going to the wheeled totes. So we have in there that we are requiring a 4-foot separation between the containers, if at all possible. You know, a 24-hour street side replacement restriction. We want to encourage people not to have garbage cans sitting out on the curb 24/7. We want them out no sooner than 24 hours before pickup or 24 hours after pickup. So get them out, get them back in. We also updated those other changes that the mayor pointed out last time, you know, as far as the handling of newspapers. And just to clarify, it's clear glass only that'll be recycled. The colored glass, it has to be dealt with by other means. So those are all included in there. We have some definitions that we updated as far as what residential waste and rubbish is. We kind of cleaned some of that stuff up. So all the changes are there that we need to make our new system effective and part of our code. So we recommend its approval.
Has anybody here, the city or any of the other council members, heard any comments or questions regarding this?
The only minor comment I had was in relation to the clear glass. I had a few residents ask about, about the color glass, what option would there be. Coincidentally, I ran to Alan Powell today and spoke with him about that, and he says simply there's just nowhere for it to go. It's, they aren't a holding company. They in order to recycle, they have to have a place for it to go as well, and there just aren't companies taking it on, and so they're not able to process those. So.
Yeah. So I think for the time being, I mean, our redemption center in town is probably the best place, maybe the only place in town that you can take that type of glass, assuming it's a...
If it has a deposit on it.
You can't
Right.
take just plain
Yeah.
colored glass there.
Otherwise, simply, unfortunately, garbage is the route. There was other communities that have used it in projects as lining or a base for recreational trails and their asphalt. There's lots of things that could be done, but on a commercial or industrial level, there just currently isn't an option out there. I asked Alan Powell to, if he sees something, let us know, but it's not likely based on the environment of that product. So, on that, I would move for the third reading.
Second.
Any further discussion?
One thing I add briefly, this will be effective April 1st along with the contract with Genero. So even though we're having a third reading and it's going to be published, it'll be effective April 1st.
Okay. And are we still on track for, is Alan still on track for the April 1st startup date?
We appear to be. They started delivering garbage containers last week, and I think their goal is 750 of them a week. And so...
And in order to accomplish that, if they need to do Saturdays and Sundays, they will, so...
They have been.
Yeah.
Yep,
This
I
past
figured
weekend
with
they
the
were-
weather
All
being
right.
so nice, I figured they would.
they've been doing a great job.
So they
That's their goal.
they started in the southwest corner, and they're working their way to the northeast. So we've been hearing from the folks in the southwest quadrant.
Yes, we have.
Yeah. The
Around.
24-hour thing will be really nice. It's too bad that's not going in sooner because most of the totes that they've delivered are still sitting out at the curb where they were dropped off.
Are they really? Oh,
There's a pot full of them you get down in our neck of the woods.
Is it like snowbirds that aren't?
No,
coming in,
it's
or
just people that
don't-
just don't go and pick them up,
Oh,
drag them
shoot.
back to their house.
Oh, shoot.
Any further discussion? Well, if not, we'll have clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
So motion passes to adopt and publish ordinance 1113. Next is the,
You want the
He's
reading?
got to have the
oh, we have the reading,
I
that's
mean,
right.
I know I've spoken a lot tonight, but you still got to listen one more time,
Go
if
for
that's
it.
okay.
Go for it.
Ordinance number 1113, an ordinance amending subsections of 105.02 definitions and 105.10 waste storage containers of the Charles City Code of Ordinances for the purpose of modifying the requirements for the disposal of residential solid waste and recyclable materials.
Thank you. Next is consideration of the first reading of ordinance 1115, which is amending the zoning classification of 2 parcels. Do we have a recommendation from the planning and zoning, John?
Yes, we have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve the rezoning. It was a split vote, 3 recommending, 1 was against, and 1 was abstaining. One of the Planning and Zoning Commission members lives just downstream from the area, and he just felt it was a conflict of interest to voice an opinion either way.
Why was there a negative vote, John? Did they explain that?
It was mainly, as I understand, if I remember correctly, it was because of drainage in the area. And this is the property that actually it was started for as a request by the New Life Community Church, but when we looked at it from the staff level, we felt that the whole corridor should be changed. So this is rezoning the area from the Titus storage buildings out to 195th Street, which would include the Offerman property, 250-foot a strip of the Off-Grid property, 250 feet wide, as well as all the New Life Community Church property.
And the other side of the street is already
She's
the
counting.
the correct zone?
Well, the other side is actually in the county.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's the county city limits line that runs down the street there.
As you know, I live in that neighborhood, and my two best friends live in that neighborhood, and one of my best friends voted against this. They feel that if we, the one where the church is, they're not too worried about that one because they don't think that'll be a big problem. But the other two, if they become commercial and they pave anything, their water is already a problem there, and it will run off faster obviously if it's concreted.
Yeah.
By big parking lots and stuff.
And
That, we already know, Rick Noah, who lives in that neighborhood, he's losing big chunks of his lawn every spring.
Yeah. And when property is, split for development, it's required to go through the subdivision process, that's in our zoning ordinance. And the subdivision ordinance requires stormwater detention. So if this, when this does get developed, then detention will have to take place. So then the detention will be basically the difference between, they won't be able to run more water off. They'll have to detain the difference between the what's going off now and what additional will go off after like paving and roofs. But so really, with our subdivision ordinance, detention will be taken care of at the time of development.
You're convinced that you won't increase the amount of water flow in that area because you won't be able to do anything on the agricultural land.
Correct. The agricultural land is existing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But any new development would be required to detain the difference between the post and pre-developed runoff.
And that process will go through the same planning and zoning review and be discussed at that level again, and they will make a recommendation if and when that happens.
So it's a legitimate concern. However, there's a process in place to remove that situation.
Our current ordinance, will take care of it.
But that is a natural waterway that goes down through there, so there's not a lot you can do with that.
That's correct, yeah.
Well, I think part of the concern with existing, it's a problem, and part of the concern was I think there was some tiling done on that farmland property that's made the problem worse, but that's out of our jurisdiction, and so if we, I guess my thoughts were if we develop this as an R3 area, like John said, then we would have some ability to enforce the drainage, which we don't have at this point, I guess. So to me, it seems like it would be a potential better situation for them. I mean, I can't say that for sure because you don't know what the whole story is going to be. But I think, like Steve and John said, by changing it to an R3 today, we aren't saying that we don't know what the drainage is going to be. It's just providing an opportunity to look at drainage if somebody wants to develop there.
Yeah, because just simply rezoning it will not change anything. I mean, it'll still be the same type of runoff because the land use won't change. It's just the zoning is changing so that when it is developed, it'll go through the subdivision process and things will be taken care of at that time.
You're convinced that you can slow the water down, or it won't increase the water anymore.
We won't increase the water, yeah.
That's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do anything about the rest of it.
That's one area we can attempt to control as opposed to the agricultural, where if they run more tile, that's out of our jurisdiction.
One thing I mentioned too, I'll mention at the meeting that I'll mention here tonight was, this area is within our the scope of our sponsored project area. So, if the landowner is willing and interested, we might be able to do some water retention practices within that area that could possibly help. So, that's something moving forward here that might be a way to help eliminate the existing problem that's there, or at least improve it. But that's no guarantee. you get landowner participation on that as well. So, but it's an opportunity where we would have some funding to possibly do something to improve a situation that's currently not optimum. So.
Any further discussion?
I would so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the first reading of ordinance 1115. Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
So we'll have the first reading of ordinance 1115. Is that Keith?
Yeah, it is. Just give me a second to back to that. I'm sorry. We have one.
That's it right there. You got your
Thank
right up there. You got.
Use my technology.
Thank you.
It's reliable.
Ordinance 1115 be the second.
Letter
The
F.
Letter F.
I see.
Just read that one there.
Yep. Consider the first reading of ordinance 1115, amending the zoning classification of two parcels located in the southeast quarter of Section 2, Township 95 North, Range 16 West, 5th PM in Lloyd County, Iowa, from R1 Single Family District to B3 Service Business District.
Thank you. So we have Resolution 3818, which sets a public hearing on ordinance 1115. Is that correct?
Yes, before you hold the second reading, you'll need to have a public hearing on this matter, and we'd recommend approval of Resolution 3818, which sets the public hearing for 6 p.m. At the next council meeting, March 19th, and it also authorizes the clerk to publish the public notice.
So once again on that, will the property owners get the adjacent property owners get a notification like they did for the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, or to let them know there's the public hearing that night or not, or they just have to see the publication in the paper?
The latter, yeah. There's no requirement that we send any other notice to the property owners. They were notified of the planning and zoning meeting, and I think a couple did show up, and then it'll be published in the newspaper as well.
I'm just thinking that there may be a couple of those who are interested in coming to that public hearing too, so just be...
And I think we commented on that night
think
at
we did.
P&Z, didn't we?
Might have, I don't
think we
remember.
told them that, because they said that the council would be the final say on it, so I believe we did comment on that,
I'm
that
sure.
it was going to be held.
I'm sure it sounds like Dan's had some conversations. He can get that information relayed too, so...
That's so move.
I would, yeah, second.
Any further discussion? The clerk will call the roll.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Motion, or the public hearing is set for March 19th. Next is consideration of the first reading of ordinance 1116, amending section 23, advertising and signs. We have a recommendation from planning and zoning on this one.
Yes, we do, and this item, we've actually received several inquiries asking for sign permits for signs to be placed on faces of buildings that do not abut city streets. We can't issue those sign permits because our current ordinance only allows fascia signs to be placed on buildings that actually abut a city street. So what we did, we looked at how we could work with our ordinance and make changes, and Brad, he prepared an amendment to section 23 of our ordinance, and we also worked with Mark Wicks and the Downtown Review Committee to get their input on this. The Planning and Zoning Commission, they held a public hearing last Monday, February 26th, and they are returning a unanimous recommendation to approve the amendment.
Any comments or questions?
I'm glad to see this happen. I've had concerns from buildings, including Snap Fitness and Hot Shots, which I believe are two of the main buildings. Are there any other businesses that were brought forward from this, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's H&R Block.
Okay.
The new H&R Block location.
Okay. I guess, was there a reason why this was the process of only allowing on city on the facing the street, or is it just?
It's just how the zoning ordinance is written.
Okay. It's nice that we can adapt to new situations.
I don't think we had any inquiries until recently about it.
Yig Sports used to have a large sign on the north side of the building facing the bank, but you forced me to take it down and had to go out of business.
You're welcome.
Brad, in the ordinance, Section 1 and Section 2, the last number 4 says such signs must be located on or visible from the street frontages of principal buildings. Does that run kind of afoul of what we're trying to do?
So what the prior ordinance says is that the signs had to be located on the street frontages of the principal building, meaning if the building wasn't facing a street frontage, it couldn't.
It couldn't be on the side, so this language is what allows it.
So
okay.
correct, so we amended it so that as long as the sign's visible from a street frontage, you can,
okay.
so it could be on the side of the building as long as it's visible from a street.
I just wanted to make sure I was reading that right. Thank you.
And this is fine with Hot Shots?
Yes.
Those businesses have looked at it?
I mean, this will allow, their request to be permitted.
Perfect. I would so move for ordinance number 1116.
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Well, Keith, you get to read another one. We'll have the first reading.
Ordinance number 1116, an ordinance amending section 23, advertising and signs of the Charles City zoning ordinance by amending sections F.11a and F.12a to permit the placement of exterior fascia signs which are visible from street frontages of principal buildings in B1 and B2 districts.
Thank you. Next, we'd have Resolution 3918, which sets the public hearing on Ordinance 1116.
Yes, amendments to the zoning ordinance also requires a city council or a public hearing at the city council. So prior to the second reading, we'd recommend approval of Resolution 3918, which would set March 19th at 6 p.m. as the public hearing date and time.
I would so move.
Second.
Any further discussion on that one? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Next is Resolution 4018, which sets the date for public hearings and additional action on proposals to enter into a general obligation loan agreements and to borrow money thereunto.
Yeah, this is the next step in the process, part of our fiscal year 19 budget for our various items that we use the debt service levy to fund, those being a lot of equipment replacement costs, various small projects. So we'll be setting 2 public hearings because we have some items that are considered essential corporate purpose and some are considered general corporate purpose, so we have to deal with those differently. I attached the final sheet I have on there for the items that we're using debt service levy on, and that's what that fiscal year 19 current fiscal year amount is. You can see how they break out there. I highlighted the ones that were new expenses that we hadn't done prior, are listed in the pink, I believe is there. So total of $213,458 worth of items, and those are broken down on the within the 2 public hearings that we have set up there. So one's going to be for $30,000 and the other one for $185,000. So recommend passing the resolution to set those dates for public hearing.
And will that date be the same, March 19th?
It will.
I'd so move.
I would second.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Well, those hearings will also be set for the March 19th meeting then. Any miscellaneous correspondence
None,
tonight?
Your Honor.
Brad, attorney's report of anything?
None, Your Honor.
City clerk's report.
Our next planning session will be March 14th at 6 o'clock, and I just want to remind you to email your legislators, as Steve, I think, alluded to, that the backfill is in danger of being phased out. And I know I sent 2 emails already, so they're tired of hearing from me, but if you guys have a chance and haven't yet, it would be great to email them and ask them to keep that in place. So it's about $170,000 to us, so.
Right.
And, you know, and we've benefited, we've seen some development in town, but that development's not outweighing the additional costs that we're seeing. So the reduction in the property taxes, you know, and the growth that communities are going to see to outweigh that, you know, I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen or not, because we have seen some, and our budget is ticked up a little bit each year, but not to outpace what we would lose with the backfill getting taken away. So, you know, you think about, you know, your Des Moines metro communities; those are the ones that see a lot of the benefit from a lot of that growth. And so, when you get to the small rural communities, it really the backfill will impact everyone hard. So please contact your legislators.
Anything else, Steve, that you have?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that Mayor Andrews and we're going to be meeting with Mark LaCroix tomorrow to kind of touch base on Parkside development, see where that's at, and see how it's moving forward. I'm hopeful that in one of the next upcoming workshops that Mark will be able to attend and give an update to the full council. I don't think that'll probably happen until April, most likely. Our comprehensive plan, we finished our focus group meetings last week. So we had our second meeting with our 4th focus group. So Myrtle and Nyakog are working to put that information together so that we have a document that's ready to present to the public to get input on. Once again, you know, we did the community survey. We had fantastic response. We had like 770 total respondents, both online and by paper. So 10% of the community participated. So that was really good. So it's with that information that the focus groups were able to finalize their thoughts on what they saw, and so now it'll be going to the public again to get some additional input. So we're inching closer to being complete with our comprehensive planning process, which is good.
Any estimates, Steve, on when that preliminary plan might be available, or?
Not this time, Mayor. Not this time. Also wanted to follow up on, let you know that Iowa Conservation Partnership grant that we applied for here a couple weeks ago with USDA that would help fund a position for the Upper Cedar Watershed Commission. Also be that boots on the ground person for the RCPP grant, the sponsor project grant, has not been funded yet. They had 3 groups: the yes group, the no group, and the maybe group, and we're at the top end of the maybe group. So what that means is when we get closer to the end of the federal fiscal year, if there are additional funds available, there's a good chance we'll get funded at that point. But as of right now, we are not funded for that. So I had the state conservationist here as we met with our RCPP group last week, and he was able to share that news with us. And so it was a very strong application. It was just incredibly competitive. So he said we're at the high end of maybe, so I guess that's better than the low end of no's. The other thing I want to mention is next week, next workshop, March 14th, I will be absent. I'll be in Iowa City for our spring conference for the city managers, so I'll be down there for IMMI from Wednesday through Friday. So if you need me, call me or email me, but I will not be here for the workshop. So.
We were discussing having someone join us for the workshop, so that'll be 2 weeks out or the week workshop after that.
Possibly. That definitely wouldn't be happening on March 14th either way. So that's most likely going to happen, you know, a week or two after that. That possibly could be into April as well.
Anything else tonight?
That's all I have.
Any board or commission or committee reports anybody has?
Well,
Nope.
on the landfill, we're still sitting on $1 million bid to put in a cell. We've had 2 meetings we haven't been able to make, so it's been rescheduled for tomorrow night, so that don't sound too good. Last meeting, we didn't have a quorum, so we couldn't make the vote on it, so. But that contract will be let. Oh, time's up.
Yep. It's cut off. No.
Any other reports? Had to wait for the cycle to stop, so we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.